Tropical storm Elsa gaining momentum in the Atlantic, but where it goes from here isn't entirely clear. An analysis of the latest track and new model data starts now here on Tracking the Tropics. Hey there, folks. JB Buno here with you in your hurricane headquarters, back for another episode this Thursday, July 1st here, getting July underway here with Tropical Storm Elsa and with wavy meteorologist Casey Laheka joining us there on the right side of your screen. Welcome back to Tracking the Tropics, Casey.
Hey, JB, it is good to be here again. And, it's always fun to talk storms with you guys who are, very much so in the heart of these storms sometimes. So it's always good to be here.
A lot of questions and comments I'm sure to get to here in the Facebook Live comment section. You can use hashtag HeyCasey, hashtag HeyJB. Let's avoid the hashtag HeyOlaf and hashtag HeyAnna in the Facebook Live comment section. How about hashtag HeyAmanda here? Amanda Holly standing by at the wall with the latest on Elsa. Some new stuff coming in here in the last couple of hours, Amanda.
Yeah, so we got the 11 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. That, of course, included a new track, which didn't have a whole lot of changes from the 5 a.m. track that was issued earlier this morning. And then we just got the 2 p.m. advisory in, which is basically just a status update. It talks about the latest maximum wind speeds, the current position that it's in, and the current speed that it's traveling. But this is the latest infrared satellite. We're zoomed way on out here. Of course, this is the United States. We've got the Caribbean, and then this is Elsa, Tropical Storm Elsa. It was named earlier this morning. Of course, it got depression status yesterday, and then it's gotten a little bit better organized overnight. One thing I want to show you, though, before I move on to the next frame is this area. It's kind of hard to see, I know, but it's north of all of this shower and thunderstorm activity. It's just a little bit of a gray, maybe sandish color area. That's a lot of Saharan dust that's still moving off the coast of Africa, but it's to the north and basically just behind Tropical Storm Elsa. This is why, though, we don't typically see these tropical waves survive off the coast of Africa this early in the season. So Elsa, a little bit of an anomaly here. It is battling some dry air, which I will show you in just a few minutes. It's also moving very fast. It is racing off to the west-northwest at 28 miles per hour. That's really fast for a tropical system trying to, organize itself, because the lower layers of the atmosphere and the upper layers of the atmosphere, they can't kind of stack themselves. They can't continue to be vertical, completely vertical, and that helps the storm organize. So you've got the storm racing off to the west here toward the Caribbean, toward the Lesser Antilles. That's these islands right here. Maximum winds are up to 45 miles per hour. Of course, that's just above what we need for tropical storm status. 40-mile-per-hour winds are maximum winds for tropical storm. But that's what we've got going on. Pressure 1,005 millibars. It's not an incredibly strong storm right now. We do have a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity associated with it, though, and that is what's helping to kind of keep the storm going. So let's look at the latest track for Tropical Storm Elsa. I'm going to preempt this by saying there is a lot of uncertainty by the time we get to days 4 and 5, and that's because the models just really aren't in good agreement beyond that time frame. But up until then, we've got pretty good agreement. I mean, by tomorrow evening, it's already going to be making its way into the Caribbean Sea, and that's because of that fast forward motion. Again, it's moving very quickly. So it's going to race across the Lesser Antilles here, maintaining that tropical storm status. I do think within the next 36 hours, we could see some strengthening, so don't be alarmed if you see that. It's in a pretty good area where it could pick up some strength over the next couple of days. But as it moves through the Caribbean Sea here and maybe curving off to the north, it's going to encounter an environment that's maybe not necessarily as favorable for that strengthening. So the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center does not bring this to hurricane status. That's not to say that we won't see that happen, but just so you know, that's why we're not seeing any ones on the little icons here. They actually keep it a tropical storm status for the next 5 days. So at some point we will see it recurve off to the north here, and of course every storm we look at that comes from this region, it's going to be when is it going to turn north? A turn to the north sooner would keep it out over the Atlantic. A turn to the north later, it would stay on a more southerly track for longer, of course, would potentially bring it into the Gulf of Mexico. So that's going to be the big question that we're going to be watching over the next few days, 2, maybe 3 days, and then we'll have a much better idea of where Elsa will be headed. For now, The southern peninsula of Florida is in the cone of uncertainty. But again, the National Hurricane Center is stressing that the uncertainty is higher than normal right now. And I'll tell you why. Because the models that we look at, the reliable models, they're just not in good agreement. The GFS, the American model, and several other reputable models bring it along this path. But the European model that everybody loves actually brings it to the north through the Bahamas here and basically shears the system out in the Atlantic and doesn't even bring it close to the United States. That was the past few runs of the European model. So that's why there's a lot of uncertainty. Yes, Florida is in the cone here, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we will see impacts. We're actually going to see this cone probably shift over the next several days when we get a little bit better of an idea of what it will look like after it moves over the Lesser Antilles. Of course, there's some mountain ranges there. If it takes a little bit of a track farther to the north, the Dominican Republic is very mountainous as well. Cuba is very mountainous, and it's also, as it moves a little bit later into the Caribbean, in this region here, it's going to be battling some stronger upper level winds. So that will help to keep the strength of the storm down. That's good news. But again, uncertainty comes as we get into days 4 and 5 and on when it makes that turn. You can see the forecast models actually have a pretty good agreement up until about Sunday, maybe Saturday or Sunday. Then you start to see them spread out a little bit more, and then they continue to spread out as we get into days 4, 5, and 6. So a lot of uncertainty as we get toward the early portion of next week. But as of right now, the National Hurricane Center does have the cone encompassing the southern half of the peninsula of Florida here. So that means that we could potentially see tropical storm impacts here in Florida early next week. Not saying we're going to, but we are in the cone, so we have to start thinking about those preparations. Not uncommon for this time of year. If we see storms develop in the eastern portion of the Caribbean, this is basically the path that they end up taking. We now look to the Bermuda high pressure that sits out in the middle of the Atlantic to steer these. How strong that high pressure is and where the placement is basically determines where these storms go. I'll also say that there is a cold front coming in that is going to impact the timing of this as well. There's a trough, an upper level trough that will help to recurve this back out to sea. But I'm going to bring in Casey here because, you know, Casey, you guys could be impacted by this as well. This is not out of the question at this point.
Right, exactly. So, you know, if that, like you were saying, if it takes more of a northerly shift pretty early on, that could go right up the coast and on the eastern side of Florida and then up the east coast as it kind of tracks right alongside the land. And then, you know, a very typical spot right along the Outer Banks, Hatteras Island to see kind of the worst of the storm. And then we see some impacts too in Hampton Roads and Norfolk, Portsmouth, you know, Virginia Beach, that kind of area. And just like you guys in Florida, it's vacation season. Everyone is there, especially more so now after the pandemic. So obviously have to keep a very close eye on it. And as you were saying, as it interacts with land, so many things can change over the next couple of days. So it's really hard to say, but it can never hurt to be prepared.
Absolutely, because this isn't going to be the only storm that we're tracking as we head into the next few months, into the heart of hurricane season. This is an early fifth named storm here. It is technically the earliest fifth named storm on record, but because of the past several years, we've gotten so much better at detecting these storms out in the middle of the Atlantic. I think that's one of the reasons. But again, yes, the path that it's going to take is generally through the Caribbean here, but it is going to be a big question mark whether it moves into the eastern portion of the Gulf of Mexico or potentially recurves out into the Atlantic. Like I said, it's still got a pretty good handle on the storm right now. It's really trying to organize plenty of shower and thunderstorm activity associated with it. But look at this tropical moisture. There's a good amount of dry air on the northern side of this storm. It is trying to interact with the center, which is helping to keep it a little bit on the weaker side. But I do think that we could see some strengthening over the next 36, maybe 48 hours. But as it moves over the Lesser Antilles right here, we'll have to see what kind of shape it's in by the time it gets on the other side. And again, that fast forward motion is going to help to keep it a little bit weaker as well. Nonetheless, right now over the state of Florida, we do have a lot of tropical moisture in place. We've been really getting these heavy thunderstorms in the afternoons. That's thanks to that deep tropical moisture. We use Max Defender 8 radar locally to track these downpours. And if we have Elsa move in our direction, we're going to be able to detect it as basically as it's starting to move toward the Florida Keys. But that's a big if as we head into early next week. But wanted to give you an update there on Max Defender 8 radar. So again, the tropical moisture, this is generally the area that we're looking at with Elsa. This is just one particular model, and I will say this is the GFS. So this is the model that kind of brings it a little bit closer to the state of Florida here. Lots of tropical moisture nonetheless. I do think that, again, if we see these impacts, JB, it's really just going to be a weaker end storm. Nothing that we couldn't handle here in the state of Florida.
As a reminder here, folks, we have not yet had the first hurricane of the season. Could it be Elsa? We're going to get to that because one of the questions that just came in the Facebook Live comment section pertains exactly to that, whether or not this is going to be our first hurricane of the season. As you can see at the bottom the bottom of your screen there, we are now in the meteorologist Q&A portion of Tracking the Tropics. If you've been with us here before, you know how it works. Otherwise, let me remind you, you can use hashtag HeyCasey, hashtag HeyJB, or hashtag HeyAmanda here in the Facebook Live comment section, and we'll get to some of your questions. Amanda's going to be hanging out here at the wall to kind of do a little show and tell and be able to illustrate more properly here as far as what we're going to be seeing here with Tropical Storm Elsa. Stephen Williams from WJTV's Facebook page. A lot of Facebook pages that we're tapping into here to get questions and comments from people. Hashtag HeyAmanda. What states will be affected? And I'll bring Casey and Amanda up here to kind of answer this first question that we have here from Stephen.
Yeah, it's hard to say what states, if any, will be impacted at this point, right, Casey? I mean, we've got this system that's going to be making its way into the Caribbean Sea here over the next couple of days. But beyond Saturday and into Sunday, again, it's going to all depend on the timing of that turn. I mean, we could be talking about potential Florida impacts by as early as late Monday if it waits to curve a little bit later. If it curves earlier, Casey, you guys could be talking about impacts up along the southeastern coast.
Right, exactly. You know, that's why this cone, it only goes out so far because these models, everything can change so quickly. So, I mean, we could name off 20 states probably that could be affected, possibly, but not know exactly until we get to probably Saturday or Sunday, at least a little bit more time to see what happens here over the next 48 hours, because we could name off a whole list of them and might not be the ones that it actually is affected by it.
Right.
Next question coming in here from Jessica Santel, WFLA's Facebook page. Hashtag HeyJB, is it possible that it hits the warm Gulf waters and strengthens into a hurricane? This is the question I was referring to that we just got in here from Jessica. Throw you guys back up here on screen. Chances Elsa becomes a hurricane.
Definitely not out of the question. Again, the official forecast does not call for that right now, but I do think that we could see some organization in the next 36, maybe 48 hours, and I wouldn't be surprised if Elsa became our first hurricane of the season. Do I think it's going to get much stronger than that? No, not necessarily, because yes, the Gulf waters are very warm, but it's also going to, again, be interacting with the mountainous islands here in the Caribbean, and there's also going to be some higher upper level winds, the stronger upper level winds that are going to prevent that further strengthening. So I do think that even if we see the hurricane status, it's not going to be an incredibly strong hurricane, Casey.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that go into that, obviously. And even if it does become hurricane strength status, it'll be on the low end. So there's not a huge difference. It's really just the name difference at that point, because it'll be kind of teetering back and forth, I think.
Next question we have coming in here is from Kimberly Marie. Hashtag HeyJB, should Tampa be concerned? Of course, we have a lot of Facebook fans joining us from Tampa. I have a flight coming in Tuesday night. Guys, talk just in generalities here, just about the Tampa Bay area. We've had some questions come in about Sarasota, about Polk County, about Tampa, of course. What do we say to Kimberly and those asking about Tampa Bay?
Well, I'll say, especially if you have flight plans or any kind of vacation plans, I know it's the holiday weekend, you really are going to want to pay attention to the next few days to see where these shifts occur. You know, if they shift a little bit farther to the right or to the left, that is going to impact, you know, where we see the strongest impacts from this storm. But you can see the time frame right now. This is the particular thinking from the National Hurricane Center as of the 11 a.m. advisory. 8 a.m. Monday here could be anywhere north of Cuba, could be over Cuba, could be south of Cuba. Wouldn't even rule out it being a little bit farther to the east of this as well. But then 8 a.m. Tuesday here would be, crossing through potentially the Florida Keys and then maybe the Tampa Bay area. Right now, the Tampa Bay area, Polk County, Sarasota, Hillsborough, all the way up to Citrus, we're in the cone of uncertainty. So this is something that, you're going to want to pay attention to over the next few days. I think that if this comes through, we're going to be able to handle it. It's not going to be anything outrageous, but it's something that, could impact flights. It could impact travel plans or vacations as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, it's just too early to say about flights, about vacation plans. It's something that right now, if you have plans next week, keep a close eye on it. Don't take what we're saying right now and wait until Tuesday to look at your flight plans. And, watch again tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday to really know what the trend is on this system.
Well, if Tuesday is too early, then I can assure you that Wednesday is too early. Anybody know what's going on in Tampa Bay on Wednesday? Crystal Moore does. #KJB. Will it affect the Stanley Cup Game 5 on Wednesday? I'd like to point out here, everybody, that's if there is a Game 5. Your Tampa Bay Lightning up 2-0 as the series goes to Montreal against the Canadiens. So, yeah, but Tampa Bay really honed in right now in the Stanley Cup Final. Wednesday would be that game, Amanda, and so it's a valid question, but right now we don't even see the track here get as far as Wednesday.
And right, the National Hurricane Center only goes out 5 days for a reason. But because of the fast forward motion of this system, I do think that by Wednesday timeframe, we would be looking at this farther to the north of the Tampa Bay area. So that's good news for the folks headed back down to Tampa, or all of us here in Tampa that want to watch the Lightning take on the Canadiens if that occurs. But I think by Wednesday, we would see the impacts north of us. That is just a very early estimate. Don't quote me because that can change. It probably will change the timing of all of this, especially if it takes a turn to the north sooner. Then we would feel less impacts here in Tampa, and then by Wednesday it would be even farther away. But if it waits a little bit longer, it could be a little bit slower of a track. If it took sort of this kind of track here, it would be a little bit slower and the impacts would be a little bit later. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
And before we get to the next questions, the last call here for questions using #KJB, #KAmanda, or #KCasey. Also want to remind, we have a lot of folks joining us from Facebook pages across the United States asking about states such as Arkansas, states in the northeastern United States. We aren't even really at a stage yet with Elsa where we can project what's going to happen here in Tampa or here in the state of Florida. So we have a long way to go here, but we're going to be live here consistently over the next week to give you these updates here on Track in the Tropics. So stay tuned for everybody joining us from those respective states. Next question we're going to throw over to Casey Laheka joining us from Wavy in Virginia. Carol Hodges asking, what's the chance of a Mississippi impact? Hubby family emergency in Arkansas, so I'll be by myself.
Yeah, good question there. Again, one of those things, if it kind of shifts a little bit more towards the west, then we would have more of a Mississippi impact. But if it takes more of a northerly shift here in the next, say, 48 hours, then it would ride more along the East Coast. So really, that's why these models are so different at this point, because each model takes into account a different kind of starting position for this system. And so as it just makes those little changes early on here, that can have a huge impact along the lines, say 4 or 5 days from now. So yeah, well, I don't think I would change any plans right now for anyone in Mississippi or anyone in the Gulf Coast states. I would just say keep an eye on it. Yes, there might be a time where you will have to plan and prepare, but now is not the time to get too worried or to create change all your plans at this point. But certainly could see some rain, some impacts in Mississippi, but a little bit too early to call right now.
Chrissy Broussard here from KLFY. Hello there, folks in Louisiana. Man, thinking of Louisiana, hoping that you guys have a quiet hurricane season after what happened in 2020. Asking #KAmanda, is that more tropical weather behind Elsa? And that was something that Amanda kind of snuck in there here at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, so we've got Elsa right here. This is the tropical storm we've, currently got our eyes on. But if you look back out east behind Elsa, there are a couple more vigorous tropical waves that have come off the coast of Africa within the past several days. Now, the National Hurricane Center is not highlighting any of them right now for potential development, so that's good news. Just to the north of these, we actually have some Saharan dust, and we also typically see shower and thunderstorm in this region anyway. It's actually called the ITCZ, the Intratropical Convergence Zone. That's where we get a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity. Sometimes if some of those thunderstorms move a little bit farther to the north, they can become a little bit more tropical. But no, I'm not concerned about any of those at this point. We're just kind of keeping our eye on Elsa at this point.
Throw this next one over to Casey from Daniel Flaherty, #KJB. What do you think the maximum category hurricane it would be? A 1 or a 2? And Amanda, we were talking about this before the stream. You got to get up to 71 mile-per-hour winds to get to that Category 1 hurricane. But Casey, what do you think here as far as any chance, an outlier chance at a Category 2 storm?
It would be, I think it's a very low chance that we see a Category 2 hurricane from this. Even still fairly low that we see a Category 1 hurricane. It still has to, the wind has to jump up a lot to get there. And it's going to be coming over, yes, some warm waters, but also that interaction with land typically knocks it down a little bit. So I think that's going to be really, if it stays out to sea a little bit more, I think more likely that it could become a Category 1. If it kind of hits Haiti and then Cuba and stays over land for a little bit longer, there's a chance that it doesn't even get to that strength at all. So very unlikely that we would see a Category 2 hurricane from this, but possible to see a Category 1.
And finally here, Tracy Weaver, #KJB. What are the chances of it hitting the Florida Panhandle? Hello there to all the folks joining us on the Florida Panhandle. What do we say here for Tracy and all those folks joining us from Northwest Florida, Amanda?
Well, if you look at the last couple of days of the cone here, this is it. I've stopped it, and this is the only thing that the National Hurricane Center gives us this far out at this point. And the Panhandle of Florida is not technically in the cone. I would check back in, especially at the 5 p.m. advisory and again at the 11 p.m. advisory tonight. That's when we'll get new track updates on Elsa, and it'll probably be extended just because, Elsa is moving forward, so this track is going to move forward as well. The likelihood of the Panhandle being in the track, the next update, well, it's probably a pretty good likelihood again, just because everything's just going to be probably shifted upward just a little bit. The European model is currently being ingested right now. I haven't looked at it because it usually comes in between 2 and 3 o'clock Eastern time. So that's what I'm going to go check out after this stream is over. And then the National Hurricane Center is certainly going to be looking at that to see if maybe it's going to come into more of an agreement with the GFS, or maybe the next GFS run, is in a little bit more agreement with the European model. So the trends are going to be key over the next couple of days. What models trending to what, if they're coming into a better agreement, and hopefully we can get several runs of an agreement to get a better certainty for you over the next few days.
We're going to sneak in one more comment because, hey, shout out to Alabama, all of our Alabama viewers joining us there, my old stomping grounds. Tashina Dunn here, #KAmanda. Real quick, we'll sneak this one in. Should we expect a multiple day impact with Elsa?
Now, right now, Elsa is moving very, very fast, west-northwest at 28 miles per hour. That's really fast for a tropical system, especially out in the Atlantic. I do think we'll see some slower motion as it makes its way a little bit closer to this region, the southeastern United States region. But I don't think that we're going to see a slow down as much as we've seen with some of those storms in the past. That doesn't look like that will happen at this point. So that's good. It would most likely be, the storm moves in and moves out, and maybe a one-day kind of event where conditions deteriorate, and then they get better pretty quickly.
Casey LaHecka joining us from Wavy there in Virginia. Great to have her back on the program for another season again of tracking the tropics. Casey, before we end out, what are you going to be watching for up there at Wavy and for all the viewers up there in Virginia?
Yeah, this is the first really kind of storm that could impact us as it kind of moves up the coastline. So what we'll be watching for is just kind of what it does in the next 24 hours. Does it shift a little bit more northward, or if it's headed towards the Gulf, then we won't quite have to worry about it as much here in Virginia and North Carolina. So kind of just what it does here in the next couple of days to really fine tune our plans and know, are we going to have to do more coverage for this the next couple of days, or is this kind of going to be a storm that heads more south?
You know, I was expecting a lot more let it go comments here in the Facebook Live comment section. I think that our viewers here on Tracking the Tropics were relatively tame with all of the potential Olaf and Anna and Elsa puns that are out there. A few let it go comments there in the Facebook Live comment section, but not an overwhelming amount. Guys, speaking of Elsa, a lot more coverage coming your way here on Tracking the Tropics. We're going to be tracking this every step of the way. We've got a long way to go here before, as you see there, right next to Amanda's right shoulder there, Tuesday at 8 a.m., potentially there in South Florida, where we could be seeing some impacts here in the United States. Also, we're going to be keeping a very close track on the intensity forecast as to whether or not this actually does become a hurricane, but right now the National Hurricane Center says that is unlikely to happen. So to all the commenters that we missed, a lot of hashtag KJB, Casey, and Amanda comments that we missed here in the Facebook Live comment section, this isn't your last opportunity. There will be a lot of opportunities here as we go live on this app, website, and social media platform over the next several days here to keep a very close eye on Elsa and to keep you informed with the latest information. Also want to point out that we also have our 4 o'clock stream coming your way, Vigilandos el Tropico. That is the Spanish language version of Tracking the Tropics. Of course, Heather Melendez, Sadiel Castro will be bringing you that on the Tampa Hoy Facebook page. To our Spanish language viewers out there, or if anybody that knows anybody that speaks Spanish that would like to get a little bit more information on the 2021 hurricane season, look for it on Tampa Hoy's Facebook page. For Casey Laheka, Amanda Holly, I'm JB Buno. We'll see you next time, folks, here on Tracking the Tropics.
Thank you for watching Tracking the Tropics.